Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this industry panel discussion. So, I am Prantik Chatterjee, and I finished my PhD last year. And currently, I am working as a senior software engineer at MathWorks. So, I would like to introduce the panel members, starting from my left. So, Dinesh is, we have Dinesh Garg. Dinesh is working as a senior technical staff member at IBM India Research Lab at Bangalore. He manages a group on neurosymbolic and generative AI. So the mission of his group is to build innovative Gen AI solutions in the space of AI for code and conversational AI. Dinesh holds an adjunct faculty position at ERD School of AI, IIT Delhi. In the past, he has also worked as an associate professor at IIT Gandhinagar. So next we have Divyashil Sharma. Divyashil is a senior principal scientist at the ABB Corporate Research Center at India. He is focused on building industrial systems and applications that use machine learning at their core. So next we have Manoj Valerao. So Manoj Valerao is a principal engineer and part of Chief Engineering Office, a global subject matter expert for mechanical structures at Waptec Corporation. He is responsible for technical oversight and sign off for mechanical designs and advancement of technologies for mechanical domain. He also anchors the innovation initiatives and industry academia relationships with Indian institutes for the company. Manoj has over 25 years of industrial experience in various capacities such as technical, techno-commercial, program delivery, CRM and systems engineering in automotive and railway domains. So he has a PhD from University of Texas at Austin in mechanics and composite materials. He holds bachelor's degree from IIT Bombay in mechanical engineering. In addition, he holds a certification on architecture and systems engineering, models and methods to manage complex systems from MIT, and is a certified DFSS Green Belt. Next, we have Pawan Kumar. So Pawan Kumar Akkaraju is a senior director of engineering at Qualcomm India, and he leads the GPU systems research team. Pawan has over 19 years of industry experience in the areas of GPU architecture modeling and algorithmic research. He and his team are responsible for developing state-of-the-art GPUs that goes into the Snapdragon chipset, which powers a wide range of devices from smartwatches to mobiles to laptops to XR headsets to automotives. His team also optimizes several advanced 3D rendering algorithms and machine learning algorithms for power and performance within the given device limits. Prior to this, Pawan worked at Intel and he set up the graphics architecture modeling and simulation team. Pawan has a MS degree in computer science and engineering from IIT Madras, and he has submitted a thesis on hardware accelerated real-time multimodal biometrics. Pawan has over 8 approved US and international patents. Uh, Next, we have Disha. So Disha Puri is from formal verification. Disha Puri is formal verification engineering manager at Intel. She leads and drives the formal methodology for algorithmic designs and firmware verification. She has a PhD MS in computer science in formal verification from Portland State University and BE in computer science from Delhi College of Engineering. Next, we have Manoj. So Manoj Dikshit has close to 25 years of industry experience in the broad domain of verification and validation of embedded software. He is currently at MathWorks, leading a team on automatic test generation tool. This tool leverages formal method-based techniques such as symbolic analysis and model checking. In the past, he has worked at General Motors Research and Development team. He did his PhD from IIT Kharagpur and he has several publications and patents to his name. So I would like to welcome all the panelists to this wonderful discussion session. Okay, so to start off the discussion and to set the context, so here's the thing. So I finished my PhD last year, and of course, while this is a wonderful time, this is also a very confusing time for all of us. The reason is because there are broadly two paths we can go. We can go to either academia or we can go to industry. So to get an idea about academia, I can always ask my supervisor, who is a professor. But getting an idea for the industry role is a little difficult because I don't have an industry expert readily available for me. So thankfully, you guys don't have that problem because we have this session today, and you could always ask you could always ask about like whatever your questions are. So of course, as you saw from their bios, they have very deep technical expertise. So yeah, so to set the stage, I would like to start off the discussion with some initial questions, but the discussion is of course for you. So I would like for you guys to actively participate and please ask any questions that comes to your mind. Okay, so so I would like to ask you that what specific technical skills or areas of expertise do you believe are most valued or in demand within industry settings? So Dinesh, would you like to start?
Sure.
It's on.
Okay. So, of course, my bias will be towards AI because I work mostly in AI, and I think that's a fair bias today, right? Because all of you know that AI undoubtedly is in heavy demand in the industry. But when I say AI, there are several facets of AI actually. It's not just, you need to get carried away that you need to know very hardcore AI actually. There are the in my view the all kinds of expertise are, it's a wide spectrum of expertise when it comes to AI, and that is in high demand. It not only just the hardcore AI but also the applied AI actually, where even if let's say your masters or PhD was not particularly, let us say, in AI field, but there are several tools and techniques available wherein you need not know too many details. I'm not saying that you shouldn't know. It's a good idea to go in depth about the AI technologies and ideas, but to kick off your career in industry, you don't have to have that mental block actually. Many times I found that students have that block that, hey, my PhD was in formal verifications or compiler and I'm totally in a aliens to AI, and what can I do, my life is gone. None of such things, trust me actually. You can kick off very easily and you can take the bare minimum things and think of applying actually. Application is the easiest things to get started, and there is a heavy demand in industry across the board actually. No matter whether it is a, you have worked in compiler, in operating system verifications, okay, chip design, doesn't matter actually. Even though the time says AI, that buzzword is there, but AI has room for everyone. That's what I would say actually, right? It's matter of you to discover the right place for yourself actually.
Hi. So yeah, just to add on to what Dinesh mentioned, he mentioned about application, and I think if I don't talk about like a pure technical skill of machine learning algorithms and Python or Rust or whatever, but I think this ability to apply, especially in the industrial research organizations, apply also the academic or the latest research that is out there in a manner that could be useful to your organization's goals. That is very, I think, marketable skill, especially if you could take a paper, one of the latest papers, say, and you could reproduce that quickly. And then, if you could actually try to see that what are the special constraints that your organization goals provide you to. So that I think is a very, very marketable skill. And otherwise, technology wise, of course, in the current scenario, knowing machine learning, at least as a tool, and how to apply it properly would be definitely beneficial, because trends lead to job positions. And here also, if you see application of LLM in software engineering workshop, everyone was interested, right? So yeah.
So, I mean, you would have heard my background. I'm pretty much an odd man out here. But I come from the railway industry. So, if you see the railway, typically the image is, yeah, it's some heavy metal, it's a very rough stuff that runs on the rails and stuff like that. But if you see underneath it, there is a tremendous amount of software that runs these trains, and not only run the trains, but the whole ecosystem in which the trains run, the complete network, and intermodal operation, that the train brings in some goods, they are moved onto the truck goes to the ship, it gets loaded and the ship goes away. So it's actually, if you step back and see, it's a big network, and the network has to really operate in the most efficient way, remove the congestion. And removing congestion is not only a faster movement, but it has also an aspect on sustainability. More you stay on the track, more you pollute the air. So how do you optimize that network? So these are all very beautiful projects or beautiful concepts that have to be in place. And how do you run it efficiently in addition to the congestion? How do you make sure the trains are safe or they have the right health? So health monitoring, condition-based monitoring or maintenance, these are all very, very scientific and mathematical problems that need to be addressed. So there is no dearth of problems. Only thing, you have to have that mindset and an eye to pick the right problem which has got a business impact. Because all you guys who are just going to get into industry, the world is quite different there. I mean, whatever you do has to make an impact on the top or bottom line somewhere. So have that mindset, and there are enough problems to work on.
Think a lot of valuable inputs across the table. So, let me start with an anecdotal example. All the academia is several generations ahead of industry, right, in terms of research and how the progress happens and skills and so on. So, algorithmically and skills-wise, I'm sure all of you have what is needed for the industry. But what matters now is how do you connect it to the industry problems? How do you solve it? There are three broad areas what industry is trying to solve using AI, right? One is the algorithmic advancement itself. How do we find, earlier it was like very conventional AI, like computer vision, then it became large language models and Gen AI, and it keeps on moving. And the other area is also about how do we use AI for internal process improvement? Like how do we find, like I'm coming from the chip design background. The company is chip design. I'm not from chip design background, Qualcomm. So we use it how to find more bugs, how to find quick tools that will tell us how to do the placement, routing, and so many other things, right? And similarly, if you go to EdTech or MedTech, it will have its own solutions. Now, having the knowledge of all these AI algorithms is one thing, but how do we apply the right algorithms and not overfit or underfit and find the right match? That's the second skill. And the third thing is also about a little bit of business acumen. A lot of things we talk about, take Chat GPT. I'm sure everybody would have at least tried Chat GPT once for fun. You ask some questions, it will give some answers. But how do we make it something that's useful and make some business sense and we put it to use? And there are like tons of parameters that come from the business angle. How can we make money? How can we be ethically right, morally right? And how do we put it in the fail-safe systems and multiple things, right? So I think as an engineer or a doctoral student, when you take up an industry job, these are the three parameters you need to do, right? The algorithm side, and then the application side, and also about the business side of things.
So, can you hear me? So, I agree with all of the people here, right? So, we keep hearing these buzzwords, right? AI and ML, and as the designs will become more complex, obviously the verification problems will also become more complex, right? So, that's why formal is on the rise, the area we both work in. But as a student, what you should be looking for, if let us suppose you're not in the AI ML background, right? What my one advice to you would be to be successful in the industry, do justice to at least one language. Okay, so having a grasp of at least one language, no matter what language that is, will help you get into the details of all the algorithms, data structures, everything surrounding that language. When you have a good grasp of at least one of those, it will be very easy when you go into anywhere else, because the concepts stay the same, right? So whether you are in hardware verification or software verification, software design, or hardware design, ultimately you need to grapple with all the various nuances of the language systems. So if, as an interviewer, we often look for whether you have done justice and went deep inside at least one language. And like one of my colleagues said, right? There are a lot of flavors of AI. You very well cannot capture all of them while you're working in the as a student, right? So you would have to learn things on the industry. But how do you make that headway? How do you decide that you're going to be successful in the industry? Is that you do justice to what is right now, and justice is not theory, right? So you can go and read a lot of research papers, and you can get an understanding of what AI and ML is capable of, what sort of verification methodologies you can work in the future. But to be successful in them, actually in the industry, you have to really get your hands dirty with at least one programming language and make sure you're aware of all the nuances. That's my personal advice.
I mean, a lot has been said. So very small things. No, next time you should start from here. But I think I'll go to even basics. Okay, I mean, people have said so many things, but I mean, I would say that the transition from academics when you are doing whatever, BTech, masters, PhD, and when you go to industry, I think firstly you have to understand that there you are going to be an engineer. So you have to first have that mindset of engineering things, right? So engineer, and if you that too you go in software industry, your goal is to code. I mean, that was also told to some extent, right? So firstly you should not be afraid of coding. Okay, just day in day out you need to code. The institute gives you concepts of what, right? I mean, what to learn, how to think about it. But now here you are going to say how to engineer things. So many times when we work on projects, when we work on thesis, the kind of things you said, right? PhD tools and other things, right? I mean, they're reality, okay? But when you go to industry, I think there is a stark difference. Now, it's not just one or two examples, it's hundreds and thousands of examples it should work. There is a hundreds and thousands of maybe lakhs of lines of legacy code to deal with, okay? So there is a natural tendency in when you are in academics, particularly PhD students, I want a new problem. I want to get this algorithm working. Industry, the same thing. If you go, if your time span of say 1 or 2 months of implementing will go to 1 or 2 years maybe, okay, to really get it working in field and working on all examples with all performance criteria as being met and other things. So it's a huge battle, I think. So it's not, so don't expect that, okay, you are just going to get there and start running. So you need to really like doing that. I mean, that's a difference, I would say, that when you step into this different world, be ready to grind, be ready to engineer things. Then, so there are advantages and disadvantages both. I mean, the advantage or the kind of satisfaction you will get is that the product you will develop may be used by so many people. Okay, that's the kind of satisfaction you get. I mean, I would like to leave with these thoughts, right? I mean, if you're thinking of going in engineering career in an industry, code, okay, and then institute has given you enough ability to think. So I don't think there is a gap between. I mean, you will definitely succeed in whatever field you go, but for that you need to be a good engineer. That's what I will leave.
Right.
Hello. So we hear news about lot of people losing their jobs because of AI, or AI is doing automated coding or something. So to what extent is it true? And are we going towards time that machines will replace like human coders, or what will happen?
Something will come and suddenly we all will become dispensable. It never happens, right? Because AI at the end of the day is approximate, right? So if it will give you something and then you'll need people to verify it, right? So it's not like that the jobs will be, we will lose our jobs. What would happen is the expertise that we needs to redevelop so that we stay in our jobs, right? So I'll give you an example, right? I'm a formal verification engineer, right? So we have codes written by engineers that we verify. Once the codes would be generated, right, by, let's say, AI, if not even by other, automated tools, our job actually becomes more difficult because we now need to verify that the code, which is not even written by a human but by a machine, is in fact correct or not, right? So we need to constantly make sure that our skill set improves to meet the demands of the industry. That doesn't, at least in my opinion, doesn't mean that my job is dispensable. Definitely not. In fact, I become more important now, right? So.
No, this this question keeps coming again and again. You would have seen so many debates in social media, right? What will happen to economy? Will it lead to recession? Will it have unemployment and all kinds of things? And if you see, there are polarity of the views on the social media and all, but a strong lobby, and I subscribe to that. It's personally, purely my view. None of such things are going to happen actually. Okay, I mean, technologies, these are all typical technology cycles. Technology come, imagine the days when computer would have come first actually. Forget about that, go back in time when people used to count the currency notes in the bank, right? But even today also it happens, right? And then automatic, this currency counting machines came. Person would say that, oh, what will happen to all the bank staff? They will go out of the job actually. Did it happen? No. Something else came up actually. It manifests into different forms of problems actually. The problems will always be there. As long as mankind is there on this planet, we'll never be problem free, trust me actually. Okay, so you will generate new problems with the use of AI. Suppose if we develop AI technology, some other problem, technological problem will come which we need to solve, and after some time you all become so smart enough that you can venture from one area to another area very smoothly actually. As a student you may find it tough, even if you have worked on, let's say, verifications or software engineering. Getting into AI may feel little bit inertia, but trust me, after a while, after having 10, 15, 20 years of your career, you have sailed through so many different areas. It likes, it hardly takes overnight for you to get into new area actually. It's like that gets into your groove actually. So I think leave aside all these kinds of worry, especially at your stage when you are, trying to start your new chapter in your life. Keep all these worry and negative thoughts off, and think that how can you make a new company. Your ideal should be, let's say, Sam actually, OpenAI. I mean, think at that level actually. Can you spin off new OpenAI? Think in that mindset. Don't think that what will happen to unemployment, they will take away my jobs and all. Just don't let these thoughts even come to your mind. That's my practical advice actually. Okay, start thinking of some new unicorn actually. You should be thinking at that level, right?
I'll give a slightly different perspective. AI is today's language, machine learning, but there are so many other areas in the other than AI that are changing. So just think of it that way. I mean, if you look at agriculture, how the drones are taking care of the fertilization. So probably lots of jobs have got lost. But the good thing probably has come in is the farming has even become better. So today everybody talks in Bangalore about AI, but if you go in some other areas, there may be other subjects which may be people talking. So I don't think we should get carried away by these things. You need to stay focused. What you do good, just keep doing that and keep improving your skills, and that's all. And if you see the history of mankind, when the industrial revolution came in, the machines came in, people thought, yeah, it's the end of the story. Or if you go look at 1991, when the whole economic liberalization happened in India, everybody thought that, okay, this is another East India company coming in and we all will be slaves. That doesn't happen. The people are far more powerful, the minds are far more powerful than just machines. So doesn't matter. And I have seen in myself that when I started as a mechanical engineer, there were lots of tools. We thought, oh, we used to do hand calculation. Now it's all gone. So am I going to have a job tomorrow? Because that software will do all calculations. It doesn't work that way. And again, she said, you have to verify it. You need to have that brain to verify it, which is not available with the machines.
So I'll tell you my own story. So when I started working on my thesis, it was a very well-known, very common problem. Like eventually it was multimodal biometry, but it was one subset of it is face recognition. And when I did the literature survey, already there were papers which were claiming 99% accuracy. So I went to my professor and asked, hey, people already are at 99% accuracy. What else should I do? Right? So do you think it's true? Even today, people are solving this problem, right? So it is only that problems get more complex and you need to find more complex solutions, and AI should be used as a resource or a skill or a tool, but I don't think it will replace. It may replace the current skill that we are having today, but we'll have to develop new skills and then, how to use it for, solving larger problems, and we'll create more problems. Like I said, there are enough problems in the world to solve.
Okay. Hello.
We can go to the next.
Yeah. So I got it. So we need to update our skills. So my first question was that currently in industry, is it happening like people are losing jobs? Like we are reading it from different newspapers and all. So is it true? I understood that we need to update the skill set accordingly, but first question is not answered.
Say, across the industry, in general, let's not be too sentimental about it. Some 5% people will lose jobs every year, right? So I don't think we should attribute to AI or some recession or whatever it is, right? So yeah, but I don't think it's because of AI, right? So generally it happens, and then there will be predictions. It's like stock market. People have their own analysis and whatever their own predictions. But look at what is happening in AI. We are just scratching the surface. Like I told in the first round of talk, right? We are just using Chat GPT, Gen AI, all the demos we are just using for fun, or create this image with that and all, right? We are still scratching the surface on how to put it to business and make money out of it. I don't think that problem is solved, or it's not going to go away. Definitely not in next 10 years, maybe, or 5 years if I'm optimistic, right? So I don't think job loss and AI are very closely related today.
So and just to add, maybe current thing is also global conflict is playing a role. Okay, I mean AI, I don't think we have seen the effect yet. Okay, it may come after some time. Today, what is happening is due to global wars and other things which is going on. That effect and recessions. This is the fifth recession I'm seeing in my 25 years of working. So it has been a phenomenon every 3-4 years. This comes up.
The cycle.
Cycle comes up. People tend to lose jobs. I mean, I've gone through it many times. Okay, I lost my job as well. Okay, for that matter. So yeah, so it will happen, but AI effects I don't think we have seen yet.
It's a standard attrition, and the hot jobs also change, right? So every 2 years, the hot jobs in the industry change. Right now, AI, ML are the hot jobs, right? So that is the trend of the industry. That whatever is picking up, tends to get more attention, and attritions mostly are based on performance. But the general recession, like he said, right? So it comes like after some years, it comes, and generally the attrition takes place. So it has nothing to do with AI at the moment.
Also, just to add one more point, I mean, just to give silver lining to it, actually, you ask those people, I mean, if you know somebody who lost the job, did anybody who lost the job, he or she, were they unemployed forever? Never, right? I mean, they definitely get some new job, actually. So job should not be your sole criteria to determine the fate of your life, actually, right? Everybody gets job, even if you are getting pink slip today. Trust me, within a month's time, if you are confident about yourself, you will get a new job. So don't worry on that. There is no dearth of requirement on this planet for the talented people. Actually, if you are hardworking and talented, you don't have to worry about any of these things. These recessions will come and go, economic cycles will come and go, trends will come and go. What should stay with you is your talent, your capability, and your confidence, actually, right? Like what she said, at least be good at one thing. No matter what it is, you be good at one thing. That's it. You will have some job. You will never be unemployed, in my view. That's my view of this world, actually. Right?
And the hot jobs keep changing. I mean, I don't even find a very good mechanical engineer. I mean, forget about other things. It's because people keep changing, they come and go, they change their skills. So it's always difficult to find any good people in any field. I mean, I've seen enough in 25 years that when you interview a person, you ask a simple question, she shows a project. Can you tell me what is your contribution? Very basic question. Everybody tells all about the project, but not what the person has done. A common interview problem. There are very few people who actually answer it in first shot. And then take it from me, 10 seconds are enough to judge that person. Max 90 seconds. Beyond that, you really don't need. It's our validation after validation.
So just to give you one more example, recently there was a tweet, I don't know how many of you saw. So there was a tweet that in Microsoft, Satya Nadella has opened up one position. It's called for nuclear scientist, actually. They want some principal program manager because they are setting up the nuclear power plant, okay? Because the AI energy consumption has become so high that they need the nuclear power plant, some micro power plants. Now imagine the person who may be working in this field of nuclear power energy. I know many of my friends who works in NTPCL and BRC, Bhabha Atomic Research Center. They'll never even imagine in their life that one day I'll go to Redmond and work in Microsoft. Suddenly door unlocks for you, actually. You can apply if you are working in that, right? So never know how the time change, how the opportunity comes, actually. Similarly, for example, as he was talking, with this AI, so much, energy effect and environmental effects and pollution effects. So those scientists become suddenly relevant, actually, right? You never know, actually, how the nature balances. Nature is a very nice balancing act, actually. So just be good at what you are doing.
Since you would be graduating soon, right? Currently, there are no experts in AI ML that much, right? So it's an open game for you. That's what I'm saying. If you are good at one thing, you go to the, and I believe all of us have the same sentiment. We hardly attend interviews where people can claim that they are good at one thing and justify it. If you come to me today and say, I'm good at C++, and if I ask you questions of C++ and you can defend them in the next 30 minutes, you will definitely get hired. So it doesn't matter. So we're not looking for a particular skill set because skill set doesn't exist, right? We are looking to groom people on those skill sets if they're good enough to learn and they can justify what they already know. So that's a very stark difference from how you have approached your academia versus how you entry into the industry. But once you've established yourself, then obviously you can move around in that area, right? And then you can justify yourself as a senior in that. But to get an entry, you just need to be good at one thing.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So there was another question, I think. Can you please pass the mic?
So thank you for putting this up. I will thank ISEC for this. My name is Sai Anirudh Kere. I am from IIIT Hyderabad. I am a full stack developer turned product manager doing part-time PhD at IIIT Hyderabad. So my question is very specific. All PhD students have focused research problems, but when they get into job market, the labs they target have a very broad area. Now, when they apply in the job portal, what I observe is their resume may eventually get pushed off by the bot when the keywords doesn't match. So, what is your advice to overcome that bot and get into a relevant lab which we are interested to join?
I haven't applied for many jobs for a long time, but I think LinkedIn, like when we are trying to hire, I'm not even a hiring manager, but people approach through LinkedIn. That's a, that way you can also check the profile of people who are working there, and you can try to see, if the kind of work that they're doing, if that matches you. So yeah, I mean, there are things that where you upload your resume and bots might not parse the resume and match it properly, but I think a lot of people nowadays are reaching out through LinkedIn, so that seems to be a pretty decent pathway. Yeah.
I don't know if that is true, by the way. It's not like bot is rejecting all the resumes. I mean, there is two different sides of story. Just like, outside people feel that, oh, I applied and I didn't get a call. All hiring managers suffer to get good resumes, right? So we are always on the look to find, good people and then hire them. It's possible there is some mismatch where ends don't meet and there is a good resume, we just miss out on the web. But otherwise, it's not true. I think every resume we get, I think especially if it's coming with a good credentials, I think everyone will go through this, and then there may be even a fight within the company which you may not know which department should hire that person, right? Yeah.
I agree with this. So LinkedIn is a very good place, right, to network. So as students, you get networking opportunities, right? You should definitely reach out to your professors because they may have networking opportunities. And so I got hired through LinkedIn. When I was moving back to India, right, I just changed my profile on LinkedIn and moving back to India. I got a call in a week and I joined Intel. So I think LinkedIn, and that was 10 years back, right? So I believe LinkedIn is a very good place. And like he said, right, Pavan, that the way you are looking for jobs as technical managers, we're also looking for good people, right? So if you can get it in the right hands, which maybe through networking, look out for those people which is your dream company. Go and look for those people on LinkedIn so that you can approach them. And nowadays, people like to network. I would, at least if somebody would come to me and directly hand over their resume, I would definitely take a look at it. So I believe we are all on the same page over there, right? Because we are looking for good people and to grow our teams, right? So definitely you should reach out. Don't get bothered by just going on the portal and applying. Have some networking capability and do that. And of course, reach out to your professors, right? They may have more network than you have.
Lab for 2+ years, so talking from that experience, PhD students or PhD holders actually have this very good advantage that their CVs will never be judged by the keywords they have. We always go through the entire CV. Particularly, we go through the list of publications. where you have published. Sometimes we even go and read the papers. So for PhD students and PhD holders, they should actually not worry about that their resume will get lost somewhere. Okay. If they are not getting the call, normally companies will show courtesy to tell you that at this point of time we don't have the position. But if they are not getting a call, it is mainly because the interest or research area is not matching and not because some bot actually filtered it. For other cases, that may be the case. So currently I lead internship for my lab, and I can tell you that for that is a really big problem. For around less than 100 positions we had for internship, we received 55,000 applications, and there was no way for us to use AI because we cannot go through all the CVs, right? So we use some AI for matching those CVs with the proposed projects, and yeah, unfortunately, I'm sure some good resume got filtered, but the PhD resume we got, even for our internship, 200 plus CVs, we actually had gone through them manually, each of them. So specifically PhD students have this very good advantage.
And just to add what Atul said, like in my experience, what happens, especially if you are in research ecosystem after masters and PhD, uh, then there is a saying, right? I mean, most of the jobs, or rather good jobs or good positions, whether it is in academia or industry, you get via reference actually. So as people were saying, you should have good networking ability. Networking, see, LinkedIn and all, they are instruments, one channels which will open you certain doors, but then you may have this kind of word not matching problems and all this which are beyond your control. Other advice I will have is be in touch with your professor, alumni actually from your college. There may be some other alumni who are working in your dream companies, let's say, contact them, right? Or let your professor know, because if your professor has some working relationship with some, managers, hiring managers, or some people in the company, and if they put the word, that carries much heavy weights actually, right? So I mean, try to explore those channels as well actually, right? Yeah, attend conferences and come talk to the people. That's another good idea, yeah. Because face to face, it makes a totally, you have a different connect actually. Now let's say if I talk to you, somewhere in back of my mind I'll remember, okay, I spoke to this person so and so actually, right?
Yeah, it's not only that you, as she said, good people are needed. So if I get your resume and even if I don't need it, I don't have an opening, there is a very good chance that I will give it to my colleague who is in hiring mode. So, and I would even go to an extent where I got CS resumes which I have nothing to do with, but there are enough people in my company whom I know, and I pass it on to them, and the marriage happens. So don't worry about it. I mean, all we need is a good resume. That's the bottom line.
Just to really make this point, I'm here today because we have two openings at ABB Research in software engineering group. We are reviving the group, so the main reason to come to ISEC is this.
So, although we are not hiring, I think one thing from my end will be how you write your resume is also important. I mean, it depends if you are applying for a research lab versus you are applying for a conventional software engineering role. Okay, writing resume makes the difference, particularly if you have PhD. Okay, because even there is I mean, if you are applying for a conventional software engineering role, right? Say in MathWorks, if I say, and if you look at your resume with lots of publications but no explanation for a tool development or the way, no, what demonstrates your software engineering skills, that may get dropped. That resume may get dropped. Okay, so I think writing resume is also very important based on the organization you are trying.
So, do we have any other questions from the audience?
So again, I'm not a PhD student, so I don't know if I can ask question. It's kind of, I want to flip it a little bit if you don't mind, right? Assuming we have time.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So what is the industry doing to actually encourage industry people to go do PhDs?
At Intel, at least, we are trying to partner with IISc and hopefully one of the IITs to encourage the students to do a part-time higher studies. So we have just entered into that agreement, and it should start this year
With the,
with IISc.
okay.
So, and we're trying to explore more. So, Intel has a very strong lead program which talks about academic collaborations. And we try to work with students in under fellowship program to see if, then we can future hire them as an interns. But there's the other way around is to encourage students to go and, do part-time PhD. So that's what we are kickstarting. One of the reasons is that, at least in my domain, like I said, right, so experts do not exist. And it takes a whole lot. I mean, we have an internal sort of a university to create experts, informal, but we would like them to learn more in that area and develop sort of a program, right, from the industry in India, from the academia in India. So that's why we are encouraging this, that we can develop that skill set right from the start. Students have that mindset right from the start that they can develop that. So definitely Intel is working towards it.
With same answer, almost all companies have these programs to encourage their employees to go and do their higher studies, whether it is masters or even PhDs. Again, the reasons are same. We want this expertise to be built and the skills brought back into the industry. Yes.
So, thank you for opening your collaboration with IISc for PhD, part-time PhD. Just wanted to remind you that we are in IIIT-Bangalore.
Yeah.
So that's what I said. So this is just a kickstart. We are looking to partner more. Like it has to come from the academia.
Yeah. So just to add, I mean, same thing in IBM research lab. In fact, at any given point in time, I can tell you that 2 to 3 people will be in the part-time PhD program actually, right? At different places, right?
No,
Atul may know the more statistics, but minimum 2 to 3. I was in that role at some point in time where I used to help and facilitate this, kind of this program actually, where like select among the internal staff members who is going to go for PhD next year, etc. So there is a huge demand inside. Like many people wants to go for PhD, and we do support, of course, within the boundaries actually, because work should not suffer. So we do make selections, and it's not that they are discouraged. Like if we cannot send this year, we prioritize them for next year actually. So it's a very, very healthy program and liked by lots of our staff members actually. One of the reason many people join us because of this support actually.
So again, my reason for bringing this question is, so there's a lot of silos that happen, right? So in this case, for example, you just said Intel started with IISc, right? Some others will do with IIIT-B, some others will do with IIIT Hyderabad, right? So as a result, there's no ecosystem, to be frank, right? So in places like these, I'm looking at opportunities where a bunch of industry people join together with a bunch of academics, right? And you have a very cross-pollination sort of a thing where you have multiple research areas and there are no more silos, right? So you form a joint hub where there is this exchange taking place, and somehow academics cannot drive this effort, to be very frank, right? It has to come from industry, and academics can play a supporting role, right? And this is something somehow doesn't seem to get explored.
So if I can respond, see, I mean, it's a good idea, but there are lots of practical challenges. Let me tell you, because I was, driving this program in India. There are several practical challenges. First of all, you have to worry in India which institute will award the degree actually. If you have this, because degree has to come finally, student has to get degree from some institute, right? And there are some government norms actually. Like from IIT has to award the degree, then it has to go through their entire CNET process actually. So if you form this consortium, first of all, academic institute themselves have to agree which will be the awarding institute. Then people may have preference actually. You may say, no, I want degree from this institute, I'll prefer than this institute. It will be natural inclination actually. Even if you form one consortium.
No. When I say that, it is not you get multiple universities and your degree is split, right? I'm saying you get multiple areas of interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your degree is still from a single institute based on your area of interest versus a silo that you're fitting into. I have a contract with IISc, so you go do in IISc, right? Versus no, I am interested in this area and there's a collaboration across, and hence I will pick and choose a specific institute. Same way. So there's a much bigger ecosystem is what I'm trying to say.
So that's where my second point, which I was about to tell you, is the IP issue becomes a very, very important, determining factor in most of these games. Every company has their different IP policy, intellectual property policy. Every institute has a different policy actually. We face the difficulty, forget about, this consortium. Just to strike a deal with one institute, it takes ages time, lots of legal process actually. And I have seen, for example, Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay will have very different outlook on the IP when it comes to then Delhi, then IIIT, then ISC. So it's quite
Honestly, I'm sorry to say, I'm a little surprised that I'm hearing this because see, a country like Sweden, where there is at least 14 different companies, large companies working together with institutes in the exact same model. I'm sure they have much more stricter IP regulations than us,
yeah.
right? I just think we're not trying.
No. I mean, that's the reality. Maybe others can
think
comment
so,
their
huh?
experience.
No, I don't think so because maybe you can attribute to bureaucracy or government policy. That's we can have an offline discussion, but it's true that every company versus every industry there is a different agreement. It's not like there is a government framework. For example, some universities, some IITs have this what they call CCE, Center for Continued Education. While they encourage, but it is again case by case basis. Every company need to enter into a different IP, different, like for example, many IITs want 6 months stay on campus. Can any company afford it? Yeah, questionable, right? So we have to deal it case by case basis. I do agree if it is something like a national credit framework, something that government is bringing up, something like that. Maybe in future it will evolve. But as of now, all these IITs are very autonomous, IIT, IIS, everything. And of course, every company is autonomous by itself. So two autonomous bodies talking, you know what happens, right?
I believe what you're hearing is that we have the same vision, right? So none of us feel that this is not the right thing to do, right? We all feel that the skill set that we are looking for needs to be developed, and it needs to be developed with people who understand the research, right? So if I want to hire somebody in AI to do formal for AI, I want an expert in AI, right? And I do not have time today to go back and look at all the research going around, right? So I would like to partner with professors who can provide students, or at least who can teach my students, right, that how to go further into this. So this will, the vision is that we partner with as many universities as possible under the bureaucracy conditions that we have. But whether we'll be able to create a consortium or something like that, I don't know, right? So we have the vision, but if you have a concrete plan, maybe you can share with people, and I believe you all would be
There are
listening.
some consortiums, by the way, like at least in the VLSA industry, we have ISEC or ESI, few things. They do talk to universities and then make this happen. But even they can only introduce an university to company, but the final agreement has to be one-on-one.
Viewpoint, right? See, the idea again here is, for instance, it's like 6 months. I come from academia. I teach at IIT Tirupati. So, for instance, if you say like, okay, if IIT says like, okay, mandatory, you have to do so many courses a year of thing. So, from a year, if we can say like, okay, we can reduce it to a semester. So, we hope that the industry also, like, if you're keen on a particular area, and like we have some expertise in that area, and we have courses or research going on. So the expectation, or at least the hope, is that from a year we will reduce to a semester, which is literally 4 months, and I hope that the industry would come forward for that. And I mean, beyond that
Definitely.
again.
So when she said they entered into an agreement with IISc, and similarly we are doing with some IITs, this is what happens. So we put forth our agreements and they put forth their requirements, and then there is an IP angle to it, who will share this final publications, patents. So all this is part of that agreement, and that is very, very customized to that one-on-one relationship, that industry to that university.
Okay, so
Yeah.
question? Yeah, you had a question?
So, yeah, just related to the same thing, industry and academics. So, industry has a lot of IP things. I remember in my masters, I had an entire year of experience, and what I did in my internship. So, to present that work into my to get my master's thesis, I have to each and every figure or diagram which I made, it was have to be censored. So I was not able to present anything which I did there. So this type of IP things restrict students from, so even if we get experience, we cannot show, and then we are told this is not a work for MTech thesis. So this also happens, right? Like, it's my personal experience.
So I think I okay. So when I was my junior employee at Intel, my intern had exactly same problem. We were doing this what we call architectural workload characterization. What it means is you run some workload on Intel architecture, and it will generate a bunch of characteristics. The memory is this much, flops is this much, and so much, and we make some patterns out of it, and then not patterns out of it, and try to improve our architecture. But when, of course, we cannot present to the university what architecture we are improving, so all the student has to present is that data of all these counters, and of course the professor said, oh, what are you doing? Right. So I think it's an art that you need to develop, how to sell your data, right? And sometimes even within our company, right, at least in my case, even within company I cannot talk about lot of things I'm doing. Right. So I mean, whether we like or not, industry is that way, right? There is a lot of this IP is there, if somebody knows what I'm trying to do, if they can replicate in a shorter time than us, they win the market, we lose the market, right? That's how industries are built. And it's a student, it's an important skill, by the way, the business acumen. How do you sell your data, how do you sell your effort, and how do you sell the visibility part of it? Right. And there is no easy answer for that. You should probably get trained with your mentor or whatever it is, right? Any other views?
I just want to add a couple of things for consortium as well. I think so that I think people here are from multiple things, right? Some research labs. Okay, I have worked in research lab. I've done my PhD while working in research lab, but in academic, in the institute I went and came back. And now I'm working in a completely commercial. It's not a research lab. Okay, it's not a research environment. Okay, so I've seen sort of this whole spectrum. Okay, now the challenge which comes is that the first question, and the Sweden was also referred, right? I think the main question gets asked in any industry is what is the business case? What they are going to get out of it. IP is one issue, but what is the business case if we give it? That answer becomes slightly easier if it's a research lab, because research lab's purpose is to do foundational things and future forward-looking things, and academic have become natural partner for that. Okay. When it comes to industry level consortiums, I think that's where I would like to pose a reverse question. Okay, we would also like to see the practical things emerging out from the academia, right? I mean, that will make it much more easier for collaborations and other things. Because when you are going to take a business case, then the first question is asked is, no, what is a model for that business case in general, right? So it is also a reflection of the kind of people who will collaborate, or so Sweden or any other things we say, right? And many academia, many industries participate because probably their goal is to come up with the very practical, some industry level standard. I mean, those standards are the worst things to work with, but people get involved in that and they do as well work. Okay, so I think that's the one part which I would like to think from both the ends. I mean, the problems are industry level problems are nitty-gritty problems. They are very detail-oriented problems. Academia may not have time for it, but somewhere that both sides, that larger picture has to be seen, right? Where we want to move ultimately. Because problem is that right now, I mean, we have never done a move, so 5 years down the line, also same picture will be there. Okay, so eventually, I think things should change, but for that, both sides, that understanding has to be there. And related to this, I mean, that IP stuff is going to be challenge. Okay, but there will be, I mean, so projects are of variety of various kinds. I mean, even I do have a lot of interns, right? So, but then we make sure that, okay, is there a kind of problem which can be explained in a more general terms? But that problem may sound silly, okay, if to a professor, that can happen. But that may be relevant for us, right? Like data collection. No? But what you get by data, nothing as such, no? When you go outside. But it's very relevant when you interpret in a different way.
So just to add, from ABB research perspective, if interns' work is, needs to be protected, then we defer the thesis a bit. So you can't catalog it in the library, but we file for patents, and then the patent office supports, ABB IP team would support for early filing, and that gets done quite quickly. So, and it's just deferred. So that's a common practice at ABB worldwide.
Couple of tactical points, like what you said, you have to really deface the results and show it. On the other hand, the person whom are you working with, generally they also participate in the final defense or final presentation. So generally there is enough safety net for you to say, yes, the work is good, it is vouched by somebody, it's just not surfacing it, that's all. Secondly, to your point, whether there is a consortium and doing research, etc., I think there is some way to it. Like I have seen in US, probably the very fundamental research is carried by a set of common companies, and they bring it to maybe TRL 1, 2, 3 somewhere, and beyond that it just stopped, and then everybody has the freedom to do whatever they want, and that's where these lot of national labs, they do the work. What we have seen is we work closely with a few of the national labs in US. There, whatever, partly we fund, partly they put the money, and the results are actually made public. And that's, sometimes we take that risk that okay, let it go, whatever gets generated. Sometimes if it's not, then it's a completely different, isolated um, evaluation or execution. Even in the publicly funded projects that we get into, there also we structure it in such a way that, let's say, government funds X% and we put Y%. That Y% is actually monitored, or that scope is done in a very well agreed manner, that there is no, at least try to reduce the potential for conflict of interest or conflict of IP. So those things do exist, but again, as everybody said, it's very project specific, it's very person specific, very, even if you have a contract, let's say with IIT or ISC, every project has to be evaluated on its merit. It's not a blanket signature. So those are real ground level problems to make it work. And maybe Subhajit, you can add how we have, yeah.
Just want to comment on the internship part. See, internship is a very different thing than the other problem that we are saying, that somebody from industry going for a PhD and then what to do about IT. For internship, for that period of time, you are the employee of the company. Even though you may be a contract employee, fixed term employee, but you are the employee of the company. Any work you do is owned completely by the company, not partially by your institute, right? So it cannot be assumed that you can present that work outside without permission. So there can be, maybe students will not understand these things, but it is strictly owned by the company. So the IP issue will always come, and if anything you want to present outside, that you have to seek permissions. Companies employee going outside for PhD, then of course it is expect PhD or masters. It is expected that that will go in the thesis. Then company should take care what he's working on and so on. But internship work is owned by company.
Yeah, and just to add to Atul, actually, especially in our place, it is mentor's responsibility typically, because we know upfront that, you know, some student who comes to us for internship, it is naturally they will expect that whatever work they do, they want to put into their thesis. So we typically, the choice of problem which we make upfront, we are very careful enough that this is not some problem wherein there is a fear of leaking any kind of IP, or somebody from our legal department will come and chase us or put fingers on it, actually, because so that some mentor play a very important role in these kind of things, I would say, actually, right? And many a times mentor should understand the dynamics very well, so that they can choose and navigate the student in a right direction, even the choice of the problem, actually, right?
I want
So
to say the same thing, that when people come for internship, right? So every company has IPs, but that doesn't mean we don't publish papers, right? If you go to DAC or DVCon and other places, as engineers and as managers, we figure out a way to present our work without disclosing our IP, right? So you may not be in a position to say what impact your work has made, right? But your mentor would be in a position to say that where your 6 months went, right? So you need to have more heart-on-heart conversation with your mentor to figure out the bigger picture and say at a ground level why this work is considered a research work and why it was never done before. Something must have happened that till today this was not work, unless it's all execution work, right? So if it's all execution work, then you're toast because you can't disclose your IP. But if it is research work, some element of it is research, you can definitely say and pick up references and say why this was never done before, what is the bigger picture, why industry could not solve it yet, and what have I done to make it work, right? And if you look at any of the industry papers, that's what they project, and that's what we have figured out, right? So,
No, I just wanted to comment a little bit about this consortium idea from my experience. I actually helped set up a consortium in Singapore and I ran it for 6 years before handing it back. So there are a number of challenges in doing this, particularly when you get started, the goals of the consortium that will kind of shift over the years. This is quite important to realize. So if there's an expectation like based on a consortium, just the consortium is a networking platform and it will remain forever and the students will come in and get introduced very easily, that's really not going to happen. So initially it becomes an engagement platform. For us, it was an engagement platform for government, industry, and academia. But over time, the role of the consortium will shift. And it was also useful. One other thing that was useful in the 6 years that we ran the consortium, partly we got a bit unlucky because of COVID, because the number of companies was initially 25, and during COVID it became 15 because naturally people will drop off. So one of the things that was quite useful is that we used to fund through the consortium industry academia projects. So it is not given to any industry and not given to any academic group, but you have to apply as a pair. And for initial kind, even though that sounds a little bit forced, I know we want everything to be 100% organic, but that seemed to be, at least from the limited experience, that we funded about, over the 6 years, I think we funded about anywhere between about 15 projects or so. So that became quite useful. And I would say after 5 years or so, I felt that this mode is now more or less done. I ran it for 1 more year, but I felt this mode is now more or less done. The engagement platform has been set up and so on. And now it is to move the translation into other kinds of modes. So I just wanted to set the expectation right. If there's an expectation, and as a student, if I'm a student, I would think that, okay, it's very nice if there's a consortium and I will go there and get introduced. But for such a consortium to exist for all the stakeholders, its goal will shift over a period of time as it matures. So this goal of just being a networking platform may not be there. That's all.
Any other questions?
Okay, so I have one. So how does industry see a PhD student as a resource, right? Is it that the student knows a lot of literature in a certain area, understands that area very well? Or is it that this is a person who can formulate a nice problem, analyze it well, solve it, evaluate it properly, and defend it, right? So I think as PhD advisors, we basically try to train a student in solving problems and solving in a disciplined manner and defend that solution well. Does industry recognize it, or does it industry just think that it's like a student has worked in an area, let's say compilation, or let's say AI, and then the student can only be employed in these, and the student has to do the same thing lifelong. So
Both actually, right? So in some areas, like I'm coming from graphics and very core 3D rendering, and not many, we discussed in the past, not many universities are actually working on it, right? So we do select PhDs not because of their skill in the specific area, but because they come with much more maturity, I mean, compared to masters or bachelors, right? And they do know how to solve the problems, identify the problems, and more than solving, they know how to structurally solve it, right, in a very organic way, right? And there is also other set where we would like to early engage with people and then start putting them on problems that are of interest to us, and then slowly get to the get an experience, come PhD degree, and then hire them. And believe me, industry has enough problems to solve, right? So we are not looking for problem identifying skill, but more than that, problem solving skill, right? So that's like very structured in terms of the way PhDs are organized. They really know how to do literature survey, then come to narrowed down solutions, and then start solving it, and then customizing that solutions.
So, Shubhajit, if I understand your question, you are trying to say that how industry view a mature PhD student, like for them it's merely a resource who will come and work on some project, or it is a expert in certain area whom we have hired and we can vouch and count on him. Is that correct understanding? Like,
Okay. So generally, when a PhD student is trained, the training may be in a certain area, right? But even as an advisor, I am not expecting the student to be working in that area for his life,
sure.
right? Because the reason is that the problem is given by the supervisor, right? The problem is not chosen by the student, right? And even I am not working in the area that I did my PhD in. So even I think and even when the person is hired in academia, I understand, of course. I mean, the student. I mean, of course, you would expect the student to be an expert in a certain area and so on. But we also expect the student to be mature enough to diversify over time and be able to contribute to even areas that were not what this person has been doing over the PhD. So does industry also recognize this, or the industry says, no, this person has not done, let's say, does not know about processors, so this guy cannot become a hardware engineer?
No,
Or
so I would say probably it may vary from organization to organization, but I can tell you based on perspective from our organization. So whenever we invite a student, let's say whenever we look at the CV, so first of all, obviously you will look at the core skill, what he is like in the T shape. I would say the depth, you will first look at what area of depth he or she has, and then we have an opening in that area. Definitely there seems to be potential to talk. Once we bring the student, you have to test not only in that particular expertise field, but so there are several different levels of interviews happens actually, and they are tested on different kind of things. Certain interview panel members will be checking on their depth part in the vertical T sections part. Certain interview members will be checking on their general problem solving abilities and their flexibility and out of box thinking. So we don't want you take one person and push him and let him work rest of the life into that area. In fact, it will not happen. Even if so I'll tell you other cases. There are people who, because we know most of us, when we do PhD, you build a comfort zone actually, because you get used to that area and you'll be very happy. Many people I have seen, they build a comfort zone and then they are very happy if you are not let them, if you ask them to change the area, they feel very finical. I have seen that actually. In fact, we don't want that actually, because trends change in industry, right? Every 2 or 3 years, you may be working on a totally different area. People who are very, who can roll up their sleeves and can pick up the area overnight, they are the best one. They are the stars in the industry, I would say actually.
okay, let me make a more maybe more direct question, right? So, like, how is the hiring for a PhD student different than the hiring for a master's or a bachelor student? I mean, what dimension what are the different dimensions that are they the same, or if they're different, how are they different?
Yeah, Atul, you want to comment?
Okay, so of course, very different, right? When we hire a bachelor's or master's student, we normally look at the problem solving and the coding skills and some research bent, right? That some interest in maybe writing a good report or thesis and all. For PhD, of course, we want to see how good the quality of the work is, how good the quality of the publication is. Now, going back to whether we hire for that particular skill or so, every hiring we do, of course, is done against a requirement. So there will be a opening and there will be a hiring manager for the requirement who has that requirement, right? But the hiring is done for the lab. So in fact, the decision is not even taken by that hiring manager. Decision is taken by the lab level committee, and that hiring manager is just presenting the case and not even part of the decision making. That is what our process is. So we know that this person may not even work for next 1 year with that manager, right? So we, or at least for PhDs, we hire for the lab, and we only look for that, okay, this person has now the training of systematically solving a problem, and it is almost like a faculty hiring, just that we are not looking at the teaching part of it.
So to add to that, usually most masters hiring happens, again, I can speak only for my company. Most masters and bachelors hiring happen through placement, whatever the campus placements. PhD is ad hoc. I mean, mostly it comes through LinkedIn or a professor's recommendation or maybe a personal acquaintance or connection, right? And then as such, there are some basic interviews everybody has to go through. But on top of it, we also expect a PhD student to do a very detailed presentation on how the problem was picked, how it was solved, and what publications and what are the merits, demerits, what is the future work, and so on. And at least in my case, it's very rare we found a a PhD student working exactly on the problem that we want in house. Because anyway, like I mentioned, not many universities in India are working on 3D graphics, rendering, gaming, optimization, and GPU architecture. But yeah, we do look for adjacencies. If there is a close match, it's well and good. But otherwise, there are some general skills that we pick up. And like I said, the flexibility, adaptability, and very organic problem solving. So these are things that we appreciate in PhD students. And I wouldn't say they're completely lacking in masters, but relatively PhD students are much better in handling this.
But just wanted to highlight that for PhD students also, we would love them to code. So just that it's not that masters are being checked for that.
I think that's a good point. I think another thing is communication too, because I think what we learn through that process is to how to formulate and communicate, right? Because I think industry large part we spent in communicating. I mean, we write code as well, but at that level of expertise, I think a lot of effort gets spent in convincing people, convincing at various levels of people about why your problem is useful, even within the organization. So in that sense, I think communication skills are required and ability to adapt and see. They have seen all those curve, right? I mean, from down to up, how and come out of it and other things. So definitely look at that aspect. I mean, they should be the timelines, I would say, are slightly tighter. I mean, in academia, if you have taken 1 year to solve a problem, maybe 3 months you have to come, and it's all iterative. There is never a best solution. That's the difference, I would say. In academia, we strive for a best solution. Here, there is always a next version of a solution. So in that sense, the expectation is that a student may come in. I mean, that's so when we are through that fresh PhD mindset and other things, our goal is to give best. But here it is, nobody expects best. People just want the next solution. That's all. And lots of next solutions will give you a best solution.
So, and again, talking from my own perspective, right? So, for bachelors and masters, we generally look for problem solving, ability to code. They should be able to code an optimized solution, make sure it runs in the interview. When we're talking about people who have masters with a thesis or those who are coming from PhD background, there are two things, right? The first is at least by interviews and make sure that they can defend their literature survey. So even though the professor may have assigned them a problem, right? They should have married that problem. That they should have spent enough time understanding what agrees in the solution space earlier and what more was their contribution. So many people come and work under a group, right? So they may come back and say lots of things happened. So at least personally in our group, we make sure we go through their references and understand what was done in that area before we interview. So they should be able to defend what they have done. The second thing is, because the skill set doesn't exist for what we are looking for, adjacencies we do look for. So if we are trying to get into, let's say, firmware space or concurrent solutions, then if somebody already has an idea of that area, even if it not be for formal, that person definitely gets a preference. But they are expected to at least pseudocode. So if they are, we agree that they are 4 years away from coding skills, and for solving their problems, maybe they had to write simple C code, so they may not be able to justify and write a bigger C++ something or system Verilog, but they should at least be able to articulate the pseudocode in a way that we can understand whether their thinking is clear or not. Those two things. One thing, in my opinion, that usually goes against a PhD student is the mindset. So they do not have an execution mindset again, right? So they have a problem solving attitude, but sometimes it's very important to clarify to them that you are going to join an industry, so we will not be able to give you enough time to get stuck on a problem, right? Like we were discussing. So unless student actually says in the interview that yes, I would make sure that I would execute, we do not hire. But a lot of people actually, I mean, we will be surprised that we get resumes from everywhere, right? A lot of people make it very clear that it's not just you, we hiring you, it's you also approaching a company, right? Because you've spent so many years working on a problem. So do you really want to get into another problem and spend your time in the industry, or is it you just looking for a job, right? So many people do come back and say that, okay, this is not what I'm cut out for. So I think that that's a clear-cut conversation we have in the 1.5 hours that we spend with them. So it's different for bachelors, and it's different. Bachelors, people don't know what they're doing, right? So they're ready to do whatever you give them. So it's a different mindset.
I come from an industry where we are not in too much of a research, but we have to somehow push the envelope from an innovation point of view. and come up with something new. I mean, it need not be a fundamental research or very detailed research, but at least push the boundaries, think 3 steps ahead and try to do things. I think that is what basically we look for. Of course, for masters and bachelors, it's purely execution. Can you get it done? Period. No further discussion. But for PhD, yes, and when we also encourage people to join, I think all these things also play out in the leadership's mindset. That will this guy actually be able to solve a problem for us, which is what he is going to do thesis for, plus add some more value, and is there an ROI? I mean, that's, even if you go for PhD, that is very much needed, at least from our industry, because it's very execution focused, and all this intellect has to fit into that. Otherwise, there is no business case. It's very tough for a fresh PhD student, but that's very much a reality. And from my personal experience, and I'm sure everybody can relate, one has to go through that change of mindset, those frustrating movements, that what is this industry, there's no money even to do little things here and there. It's always there. But I think what one has to learn out of PhD is all these ups and downs and still hold the nerve and make it happen. Because I mean, PhD, at least for me, there was one line and I jumped, and after 4 years something came out and they signed. But that mid 4 year journey was simply up and down and all those things. So that endurance one has to really bring on table.
Okay, so no other questions. So I think we have already reached a time slot. So, all right. So I think I would like to thank the panelists.
I'll add one last.
Sure, please.
I think that's a closing remark.
Right, sure.
Okay, maybe that's the right. So, few years ago, I read one book by the chief engineer of Boeing 747, and I literally could not put the book down. It has got every aspect of an engineer that it has to, whether it's a manager to a trainee, and I think everybody should read that book. It's a fantastic journey how the person designed that 747 against all the possible odds that we always complain. No funding, no right people, very poor and very tough customer, very stringent timelines, and brand new product. What else you want? And it's still there. It's flying beautifully. Its author is Joe Sutter, making of 747. And that has got a nice picture, and then there is another picture of air hostesses from many, many different countries.
So we can probably close with a nice funny story. So when I first, after my thesis and all the typical journey of these ups and downs, I joined company. The first job my manager asked me to do is fix all the error messages, right? So in fact, the tool was so funnily written that it says, sorry, the tool crashed and here is the reason, but that will not be the reason. That will be something else, right? So there is another Excel sheet they maintained for which message which should be debugged, right? So, so I'm supposed to fix it, and of course my first reaction was, what? Man, I'm such a great person, and a great thesis I wrote, and you're asking me to do this. And but unfortunately, that's the reality, right? All our skills, our interview screening process help us get the job, but after that, it's all our ability to work with the team to produce something more than one person can do, right? So, and that's how companies survive, and that's how you survive the corporate ladder.
So I'll share a personal experience, right? So when I was doing my PhD, my plan was to, and it was a partnership with Intel, it was a collaboration, and the plan was to pursue a postdoc, right? So it was all set, and the mindset was the research happens in academia and industry is all about execution, and I was very firm that I wanted to do research. Circumstances changed and I had to move back to India, and I joined Intel. And I would say my job today is 80% research and 20% execution. So you never know where life takes you. It is about your interest, because whether you are in industry or academia, depending upon your interest, you will land where you want to land. And today I do hire PhDs who are working on 50% research and 50% execution, because industry is changing, right? So we are looking for people who can enhance that envelope, and we can move and solve bigger and better problems. So we are partnering with academia, but they don't have the IP to directly translate their work into our work, right? So even though we can pick up on the good researches from the academia, ultimately to execute them on our platform, there's so much more that we need to do. So do not have that bias, what industry offers versus what academia offers. The only difference between academia and industry is, in academia, after 4 years, your professor will sign off and you'll finish a project. When you join the industry, you have to get the work done. So if you can get the work done, you also have an opportunity to present your work, you have an opportunity to do more, you have an opportunity to research, as long as you understand that you are in the execution phase also. So have that mindset and things should happen.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think work done is the main thing. So, I mean, take it, if you really want to go in it, I mean, firstly, you have to consider that you are going in an industry. So that's a different land. It has its own set of rules. Okay. There are again different types of industries like research, kind of semi-research, pure development. And you have to decide how you are getting into that, right? I mean, you have to play by their rules. It's a new state completely. They have their own sets of rules. That's how they have been living. And you have to be prepared for that. I mean, that's why doing homework in the beginning is good. I mean, suppose as a PhD, if you are going, you have at least that chance to talk frankly with them, the kind of role you expect and other things. But ultimately, it's an engineering organization you are going towards. So every company, bottom line is how much revenue you are bringing. So cost per developer is the metric. I mean, that's everybody becomes a row in or whatever, some small dot in Excel. So that's the reality. Okay, so as long as you are a small dot in Excel, I mean, you never know when you will get wiped out. Okay, so you have to earn for every tomorrow, for example, right? I mean, there is nothing. I mean, early my father, I used to see that, okay, done, not 10, 20, 15, 30 years, one company done, relaxed. It's never. I mean, 25 years, I'm still stuck. I don't know whether next month I'll be there in Mathurs or not. Okay, I mean, it's like that. So let's accept that, and it's a challenge also. And what it brings also is a lot of fun things. I mean, because you can create lots of interesting things. So I mean, just have that in mind, what you're gaining versus what you're losing, and check whether you really want that or not. I mean, every field has every challenges, right? I'm sure, I mean, for getting projects, you need to do a lot of things, right? I mean, getting papers is as difficult as for us releasing a next version of my software. Okay, so it's challenge both ways. It's a different type of thing, and you just need to decide, pick and choose what battles you want to fight.
I think just my last concluding remark, this was the second question. I would just say, I think many of you may wonder, what is the mantra to be successful in industry? Suppose you joined all the interview and everything, you successfully, everything, all rituals happened and you finally landed in industry, right? Now the next chapter of your life starts actually. So there, my simple mantra is, first of all, two things you have to ensure. One thing is, you make sure that you love your job, either because you got the job which you wanted, or if you did not get the job ideally which was ideal for you, then you start loving what you got. Okay, otherwise, trust me, this is not going to be the very rough journey for you actually. You better than change the job actually. Okay, by choice or by force, you like what you are doing, then that's the first mantra of success. Second thing is that engagement factor and giving 100% of yours to the workplace is very, very important actually, because that get noticed very easily by your colleagues, by your peers, by your managers actually. Okay, so your dedication and your passion, trust me, than anything else actually, skills and all, these are all, in my view, is all secondary actually. You will automatically pull it off, right? Even if you don't know AI, you will pull it off. The important thing is having engagement to the workplace. You give 100% of yours and be engaged to the work actually. Okay, trust me, your career will never be down. Curve will always be up. That's it. This is my simple success mantras in corporate world, right?
Maybe I can just add a little bit to what everyone has told already. So I think where the industry is going, industrial research, it is research and engineering, the lines are blurring. a researcher is expected to be a very good engineer, and very good engineers are brought into research to work with other researchers to, finally deliver something, which will take the company ahead. So, my suggestion would be that if you are trained to be a good researcher, try also to be a good engineer. That mindset really helps in industrial research. So yeah, I think, and maybe one last point. We also have to sell our research. By that, what I mean that even in industrial research, one needs funds, and now those will come if you map your research problem to business outcome, and you have to be able to convince some stakeholders who would put the money down, and they will get convinced if you are really convinced and you could make them visualize that what the outcome could be, and it's not easy. So you to really have conviction in what you are proposing and to be able to sell your research, is also another skill that really helps. So yeah, thanks.
Okay, so thanks again for all your insightful advice, and I think then we can end the discussion for today. All right.